Which shoe is better to hoop in? The Adidas Dame 8 or the Harden Volume 5? So today we're going to be putting the newest models from Damian Lillard and James Harden's shoe lines with Adidas head to head to see how they compare. But really quick, if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. But just touching on the box and the price really quick, you get a pretty cool box that has a lot of details going on within this Dame 8 setup. It's also going to kind of have a boxing theme that will show up on the shoes as well. And then switching it to the Harden Volume 5s, these come in a black box with some multicolored splotches that cover the whole thing. And that design does show up on a bunch of colorways for his shoes, just not the polka dot ones that we're checking out here today. But as for pricing, the Dame 8s are going to retail for $120. That is going to be a $10 price increase from last year, but the prices kind of go up and down depending on the collab. But for the Hardens, those are going to retail for just above the Dames at $130. So actually more expensive than Dame's line, even though Harden's only on his 5th signature shoe, while Dame's on his 8th. But still two pretty affordable shoes. So taking a quick look at the appearance for these models and starting off with the colorways, today we're checking out the Adidas Dame 8 Dame Time versus the Harden Volume 5 polka dot white and black. So looking at the Dame 8s first, you're going to kind of have a boxing theme show up on that pull tab. He's into the whole boxing scene for like preparation, obviously conditioning and stuff like that, just kind of getting his mind right. As for like the structure, they did take the wing design kind of off that midsole from the Dame 7s and turned it into more of a curved look. You're going to have some Dame text also show up on the inside of the upper. It's also going to be on a patch on the back side of the shoe. But, the last few models have kind of kept a similar look. I guess Adidas kind of found something that they liked. They're kind of working with it on that shoe line. I honestly think it looks pretty clean. I am kind of curious if they're going to do the whole Dame 7 extended play series like they did with last year's model. If they'll kind of transition that into the Dame 8s. Just kind of brings his studio presence into the shoe. I think it's kind of a cool thing. But these honestly remind me of the Jordan Zion 1. Just as far as the color blocking, where these are going to have that breaking color from the front to the back. It almost looks the exact same, just a small difference with just one Z kind of built into the Zion 1s. And I honestly love the look for the Zion 1s. I think Dame has a nice look for the appearance too. But switching it over to the Harden Volume 5s, they kind of flattened out the midsole compared to last year's Volume 4 model. Personally, I think it makes these look a little bit bulky. You're also going to have some text on the inside of the upper that's going to be similar to the Dame 8, but also different. It is going to be, much smaller. You also have the Harden logo show up in a small patch on the tongue. It's also going to be built into the midsole around the heel. I don't dislike the model for these, but I wouldn't say I'm in love with it. I personally think the 4s looked a little bit nicer than these 5s, but now we'll go ahead and check out how these shoes hold up on it. Alright, so looking at more of the performance side and starting off with the cushioning, the Dame 8s are going to get a dual density Bounce Pro cushioning setup that is designed to give you the perfect ratio of energy return, cushioning, and support. And these do feel good to play in. Last year, the Dame 7s did have a light strike cushioning design, and honestly, they did feel pretty similar. I do like, both of those models between the 8 and the 7. And I still have only played in these 8s, a handful of times, but I'm starting to play in them more. The impact protection, has felt good the entire time. I can see the cushioning is just well balanced in this shoe, but switching it over to the Harden Volume 5s, similar to the Dame 8s, they did switch up from that typical light strike midsole that was used in the 4s, and they went with what Adidas calls a future natural setup. And, the whole idea behind this is to kind of create something as close to the human foot as possible. They even did surveys and just a bunch of studies, during this creation process. Instead of the upper and the bottom being glued together, they used some super high pressure and intensity to kind of turn that all into one piece. And I'm not going to lie, I did expect these to be a little bit softer, especially since you're getting a combination of boost and light strike within the shoe. But, it's not real cushiony, just as far as the feel, in my opinion. Definitely not as soft as last year's model. So, that was kind of a disappointment. Looking at the materials and the support, neither of these shoes are going to have anything too special for the materials. The Dame 8s are going to have textiles covering the upper with some TPU overlays in a few different places. The Harden 5s are also going to be covered with textiles, but they are a little bit more stiff. And the plastic is just going to give you a little bit more of a secure feel overall, but you're going to get a little Achilles pillow on the Dame 8s. I didn't even really notice it while I was playing in them. I just know it wasn't there on the Dame 7s. The Harden 5s are going to have like Achilles pads built into the interior of the shoe, kind of around that sock liner. That is a little more noticeable just because they're pretty thick, but you know, as for support, the Dame 8s are going to have you covered here. You get a traditional lacing setup, and you know, although there's nothing really geared for support, the upper holds up well on any type of step back or just kind of quick and sudden movements. But you know, it's going to be mostly the same thing for the Harden Volume 5s. The shoe doesn't really move at all, but that's something I left out of the comfort section that I really don't like about this shoe. It kind of feels a little too molded in place. Your foot just feels a little stuck in that design sometimes. So I also did struggle with some heel slippage in the Harden Volume 5. I mean, it's just the side-to-side movement, it's okay for the Volume 5s, but the upper doesn't struggle with those. But I mean, as far as like just moving around, I just feel like your foot's not super secure within that design.
Shit can get dangerous, yeah. Shit can get dangerous, yeah.
So to finish off with traction, the Dame 8s follow the same general design from last year, just with a slightly different pattern. You're going to get some wavy lines in there instead of the jagged arrows from last year's Dame 7. You're also going to have some indentions in the middle of that shoe. And then this isn't a super sticky feel, but they do have some grip. I mean, I did play on a pretty dusty court inside, but I mean, as far as outdoors, they also played really solid, just like the Dame 7, so I wasn't surprised about that. But switching it over to the Harden Volume 5s, I mean, these just aren't really the best for traction. I can't really, you know, frame it up any other way for you. They do have the same flow from the pattern front to back from last year's model, at least a similar design from the Harden 4s. It's just broken up in a little bit of a different way, but I think it plays much worse. There's just not a lot of grip on this shoe for sure. I feel like I'm kind of sliding all over the place whenever I play in the Harden 5s. So I mean, these could have been better here. I'll just leave it at that. But to finish off with sizing, both of these shoes are actually going to run a little bit big. The Dame 8s are maybe actually just a little bit big. Like you could test out a half size up or half size down, I guess. But for the Hardens, I went half size down, and these are still like significantly too big. I'd recommend testing out a full size down. It's kind of crazy to me because I don't usually have to do that.
How about some packs now? I've been in my bag now. I just got my bag in. Baby, I can brag now.
So for the final ratings and starting off with the appearance, I mean, Dame's line kind of found something that they like. They've just been making some small tweaks. I think it is pretty nice. I'm not really big on this year's Harden 5 model, so I am going to side with the Dame 8s for the design on these. But moving on to the cushioning, the Harden 5s tested out this future natural design for the first time on a signature shoe line, and you know, it just didn't really land. It's not as soft as last year for sure, and it's just not going to be as soft as the Dame 8s, so I will stay with Damien's line here. For the materials, I mean, neither one of these shoes did too much here. I mean, you're going to have textiles on the upper for both, Achilles pillow on both of these shoes, or I guess Achilles pillow on the Dame 8s, more of like the Achilles on the inside for the Harden 5, so I will just stick with a tie for the materials. But as for the support, I mean, Hardens do have you covered laterally, but they don't have a lot of good lockdown other than that on your movements. The Dame does lace up a little higher too, and it just doesn't make a huge difference for that, but in general it is going to be more secure feel, so I am going to side with the Dame 8s. But to finish off with traction, I mean, like I just said, the Harden 5s struggled pretty mightily in this section. I'm not sure what happened, but it just really wasn't good. So far, no issues with the Dame 8s though. I mean, they just don't have superior grip or anything like that, but it is still going to be average at least, so they will take that section, and that will lead to a near clean sweep for the Dame 8s to be the better shoe to hoop in. The Harden Volume 5, I'm not going to lie, it was a pretty big letdown. I mean, they pretty much took a step back in every single category from last year's shoe. But the Dame 8s, I mean, there's a lot of things that I like. The cushioning is solid. It's a breathable shoe. The materials, you know, they're going to have you covered for the support. And the traction is not bad for an Adidas shoe that does kind of struggle in that section sometimes. And then I am, of course, a fan of the lower price. So if you're interested in buying one or both of these shoes and you want to support our channel, we do have an affiliate link in the description that does give us just a little commission that goes back into reviewing more shoes. So, you know, feel free to check that out. But that'll wrap up this performance comparison. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoeware. Peace.
How about some packs now? I've been in my bag now. I just got my bag in. Baby, I can brag now.